This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, Joey asks me about better awards.
Woo! I was going to sing a song, but they're just so ridiculous. So I'm not going to sing a song. And this is what a Joey sounds like. And this is what an executive producer and Wonderwall, Jess Vander, sounds like. That was a hint
This
at
is Jess.
the song
I have definitely
sing.
been a Wonderwall.
You have been a Wonderwall?
I want to do a tally of the things that I am, and I believe I have been a Wonderwall in the past.
Insofar as, like, maybe you were going to be the one that saved someone?
But after all, I'm still a Wonderwall.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I like randomly, Emerson was asking for a new song for me to sing before bed because I'm like, I can't keep singing the same songs over. And I was like, what? And somehow that popped into my head where I was like, I know the chorus of this. And she's like, keep going. What's the rest? And I was like,
I don't know.
I don't remember. So now I'm like having to try and like learn the lyrics, and I'm like, oh, I need to be much more pointed and calculated at the introduction of bedtime songs that like we can possibly sing. So I need to start like training myself to memorize songs that I'd be willing to sing on a recurring basis.
Or could you experiment with a Jimmy Fallon style nonsense karaoke where you sing gibberish to common musical melodies so that the words actually change every time and you just follow your heart in the moment?
Occasionally I can get her bought into that if I like say something particularly funny or surprising, but most of the time she's like, that's not how the song goes, don't do that.
Whoa.
But then sometimes she'll do it herself. Like I did at one point. She's like, I want to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star tonight. And then I just started repeating words that rhymed with twinkle. So I was like, finkle, dinkle, little stinkle, like over and over. And now she's doing it. I'm like, maybe she'll come around. I think like the funny lyrics, if the jokes aren't clear, and obvious to a 3-year-old, then it's like, this isn't funny and this isn't a good game and you're singing the wrong words. Don't do that. I said don't do that. Like she'll start like yelling at me like, whoa, that's not what we said. That's not how this goes. You have to sing it right. Yeah. That's the housekeeping corner. Is Joey needs to learn more songs that I can sing
song lyrics by
with
memory.
No backing music.
Yes. A cappella songs by memory. I bet
if you have recommendations, send them to criticalnonsense@sylvain.co because I could probably use some support.
Yeah.
Someone with not a wide range, probably maybe a tenor, I think is where I'm sitting. A classic tenor, you know.
Okay. Where's Aaron when we need him?
Is a classic tenor even a thing?
Look, you asked.
I'm a classic 10.
Answer to this. Okay. Joey.
Okay.
You
Jess.
have a thought. You
I had
read
so many thoughts.
You've been thinking about something lately.
So my beloved Celtics, I can't say like, I mean, I am a Celtics fan insofar as like I have to pick a team in the NBA. Like that's the team I grew up with.
Basket sports team, right?
Yes. Basketball team, Celtics. They, over the weekend on Sunday, won the Eastern Conference Finals to make it to the NBA Finals. As part of this year, the Eastern Conference Finals and the Western Conference Finals now have a trophy and an MVP for the series awards that are being given out. And I was thinking about awards a bunch as a product of that, of like watching through, the Celtics won. Jason Tatum now gets the Larry Bird trophy. The Western Conference will be getting I think Steph Curry got the Magic Johnson trophy, first annual. And I was thinking about awards and like, how do I feel about them? Like, do I like them? And I I sort of sat in this place of like being of two minds. I outside of like specific competitions that have like a set of rules and you go through and at the end there is some award, right? Like a sports season or, some other specific competition that, the spelling bee, right? Like the Scripps annual spelling bee is like, you have to spell these words. There's a set of rules. The person who makes it to the end, gets this award. Outside of those types of things, most awards are like relatively arbitrary, non-exhaustive, like highly subjective. And I was like, are all awards terrible? Like, do I believe in any awards? Should we just get rid of all awards? Or the flip side, should we like start giving them out more freely? Like, it is nice to be recognized for something or to do a thing, positive reinforcement. Like, we could all probably use a little bit of that. And I couldn't make up my mind, and so I wanted to talk to you about it. And so my question for you is, how can we better leverage awards in our everyday life?
Okay, hear me out. In the 50 seconds that I had to come up with this, I would like to give an informal, impromptu definition for purpose for awards, which I think goes something like recognize, 1, and distinguish, 2, fairly earned excellence, 3, in the name of some craft, profession, or pursuit, 4. And I think, if I may, I think each of these components has a breaking point that especially now we are starting to grapple with. So first, recognize is like the least tainted of aims. It is the purest of goals for awards. It's like, how can we give some amount of recognition to a thing? But where it starts to break down is number 1, around distinguishing. Like, how do you separate something from the rest? Well, you're going to have to create some amount of metrics or sort of means of creating that distinction. And who says, like, who gets to say what is the best blank, or, where you get some point of distinction? Like, why them? Why that thing? For the third piece about fairly earned excellence, I think this is also the thing where what is driving said metric or commendation? Is it possibly in the purest of intentions, or is it because someone paid some money, or because someone has a network, or some other format of privilege? Like, how do you keep an impartial measurement of what is fairly awarded? And then the last piece about in the name of some craft, profession, or pursuit feels like it also is establishing some standard of excellence of like, there has to be a benchmark by which you are deciding whether something is good or not. And in doing so, you are creating a more singular concept of whatever a good blank is. A good basket sports player, a good mathematician in, certain prizes and things like that, a good movie. And all of those things are really hard. Like, who says that? It just makes it really hard to do the pure goal of recognizing someone when it's so easy to break down at all these other levels.
Yeah, I mean, that's where like the, distinguishing is like a little bit easier than like the singular award, right? You know, so like even like certification type of things are interesting. Certainly, right? Like you take a test, you get your Series 7, you can be like a financial advisor, or you know, pass the bar, you can be a lawyer. Like that is sort of a threshold of some capability, which is can be interesting, right? Like for anyone who takes the Series 7 or takes the bar or takes the medical boards, that is like an important moment for most of those people, I would think, right? Like that is like a milestone marker that is interesting and saying that you've crossed some threshold. And so that is compelling. Where you start to get dicey for me in this distinguishing category is when you say this is the best whatever book of the year, best movie. Yeah, like particularly in categories where it's really difficult to be exhaustive, right? Like a restaurant, right? How do you like the Michelin guide mark is sort of more interesting to me than like the Michelin star certification, because the Michelin star certification is based on a mystery eater who has the ability to say this is good or bad. It is like one person who will give it a star ranking versus just saying like, this is a good place to go for dim sum, or this is a good place to go for pizza, that you get the guide marker.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because on this show, I, at one point previously commended the Infatuation for getting rid of their ranking system, because originally they rated restaurants on a scale of like 0 to 10 or 1 to 10 or something like that. And they had made this announcement a while back saying, we're getting rid of our rankings because how can you possibly create a universal benchmark of what is 10? Instead, we'll use these labels of great for birthdays, great for going out with your parents, great for impressing out-of-towners, because it establishes themes without making
context.
A value judgment. Right. And it helps distinguish, okay, I understand. Now you're doing that sorting exercise for me, which is a very useful award in a way. But they brought it back. And I was like, why? Why did you didn't have to bring it back? I understand the desire for something as cut and dried as us on a scale of 1 to 10, what is good. It upsets me for exactly this reason.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, there are obviously like varying degrees of quality of different awards, not just in terms of prestige that the award may carry, but also in the evaluation process, right?
Yeah.
Like
the fairly earned excellence component.
Yeah. The Golden Globes versus the Oscars, I think, are two examples. Both are fraught with their own things. The Oscars, the Academy Awards, has done more recently to reconcile some of the problems. I think they added like 2,500-ish new voting members that were brought in to represent communities that were underrepresented historically, either people of color, women, etc. But I think the ballpark is like 10,000 people vote in the Academy Awards, if I'm remembering correctly. Like, don't quote me on that, but I think it was like in the 7,500 range, and it's up to like 10,000 now. And so at least in that, right, like the pool that you're choosing from are, you know, people who are members of the motion picture, whatever, Academy of Arts and Sciences or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's 10,000 people, like law of averages and wisdom of a crowd, like at least you're getting something interesting. For me, why I don't particularly put a lot of weight in it necessarily is because like all the movies that are like Best Picture nominees are like never movies that I'm interested in, right? Like, you know, it's like maybe like one of the 8 movies where I'd be like, I want to watch that. The rest are real sad and I don't want to. But, you know, compare that as like whatever, some baseline, at least saying like that seems reasonable in its process versus like, I don't know, agency of the year or Forbes 30 under 30 or some of these other things that have like completely obfuscated voting systems or, like pay to play entry, like a lot of those other things that you might be able to point to, maybe your, like Times Person of the Year, like how are these things like, being determined?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, hence I think the need for the whole award has to be giving not just a specific distinction, because a general distinction it's like, what is this? But it also has to be meaningful in some way, because if it's too specific, it's like, all right, well, good for you. Everybody can balance a teacup atop a basketball.
Is
they
that
really
an award?
Wanted to.
The
I don't know.
Basketball teacup. Certified teacupper.
Yeah, well, and if done right, then you can have some kind of very useful practical distinction, like you're talking about with board certification in the medical community. Or, I mean, again, it's an attempt, right? It's an effort to create some practical distinction or some practical signaling of, this person, this company will blank because they are certified in this way. It's not a guarantee, but it like, in the best case scenario, in your original question of like better leveraging awards, the ambition should be some kind of meaningful, useful distinction.
Yeah, I mean, I think like flipping to the other sort of side of the question and saying like, should we or could we be leveraging things more in our everyday life in some capacity? I think we can probably agree on the fact that like anyone who is in like aggressive or desperate pursuit of awards like often have that sort of like main character syndrome of like wanting to be the main character or needing to be recognized, whatever. The flip side, like it's nice and positive and good to be recognized. Like I brought up before we started, like you don't get like a great partner award or like the best parent award or like even good employee awards or like what are the areas in our like shared common experience where we might like recognition would be nice. Like oftentimes you hear phrases like overworked and under-recognized in like the news or in social media or wherever as like a symbol of like, this person is working hard and no one is seeing it or no one's paying attention in it. And while like I'm thinking about it from the individual perspective as opposed to like from the system. Like, can you just give an award and like make someone okay with overworking? Like that's not the goal of this. It's more like, are there ways in, if it potentially falls into that, like everyone gets a trophy conversation that like older people are always upset about, right? And I certainly don't believe in that, but I also believe in celebrating milestones in people's lives or acknowledging, hard work and determination and things like that. And most of those things in our everyday lives are not sort of recognized. Like if you're lucky, you have a community or a group of people around you who do see and acknowledge those things, but like, is there some way where either we like go full, like eliminate awards? Like, is that a better world? I don't know. Or is there like the flip side of like, we just like ramp up the amount of awards that we give to sort of allow more people to sort of have those moments of recognition? I don't know.
Well, does it have to be more? I just feel, can it not just be like better awards. Like the overdoing the volume thing is, well, all right. Back to the original structure, because I think it helps me break this down. To your point about awards that are for under-recognized spaces seems like a great idea, but awards that are, so like Best Parent Award would be great, but like who can possibly give that? Like how can you create recognition for something that is difficult to recognize? That is like a category of why it is hard to create awards in that circumstance.
Well, yeah, but like to that point, like even distinguishing between like good versus singularly best, right? Like there's not a lot of merit or a lot of value in knowing like who's the best parent or like what is the singularly best book. It's like, great, you get
is that helpful?
That one reading. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that brings me to the second piece about distinguishing, like awards that are non-distinguishing, like participation is, or pinnacle of a thing that can't possibly be like who says that you are the best of blank definitively is also, it's tricky unless it carries some weight, like some contextual weight, right? Like the best according to someone with a very specific opinion. All right, well, that's distinguishing in the sense that it has been passed through a filter of X opinion, right? Like and in that sense, the award is meaningful in that it is giving you information versus, sort of just a blanket statement about what is the best of something.
So then, to that point, do we individuate awards nominations and view it through that lens, right? So like you, Jess, then make public your favorite movie of the year, best book of the year, where there's more participation and no sort of like, ultimately you may get some singular like end state of the most people picked this as their favorite book of the year, best movie of the year. But like, even if you get 100,000 votes, that is like potentially still distinguishing, but upon a gradient, as opposed to sort of like zero sum, which a lot of awards are, right? Like if you're nominated but you don't win, oftentimes those nominees are like forgotten in the annals of time.
Yeah, well, and maybe I'm not sure if this is exactly the thing you're saying, but like that's why the People's Choice or like the Rotten Tomatoes according to the people is a very useful measure of like, okay, this is just a popularity contest, and that's fine because it can be a meaningful distinguishing factor. For example, the critics' rating on a film such as Hitch, a classic cinematic work of excellence. I am certain has a much
You're bringing
higher
back Alex Hitchens.
People's rating than critics' rating, but it is a useful piece of information that it has been awarded by way of popular vote. Are you looking this up now?
Yes, I need to know how it grossed $177 million. Actually, pretty close. The critics actually rated it better than the audience. 69 for the tomato meter, twist. 62 for audience score.
Because thank you,
it does not.
This movie does slap,
How dare
and
you,
there
Alex.
is no world where you're changing my mind. I will take this. We could have we had a multi-part series of Joey and I feuding on the caliber of movie of
Alex
Hitch.
Hitchens.
The 2005
If
Will
you
Smith
live,
classic.
laugh, love, then you will find love in all of the places where you live and laugh.
This is so wrong.
Oh, I hate it. No, I mean, I think that is valuable. But then in the flip side, right, like sometimes like having the singularity of an award, right? Like, in this example, right, like if you were voting on a bunch of things, right? Like Jess's best friend of the year 2022 could be extremely meaningful to an individual person.
Yeah.
Where, it's like the introduction of competition, but it's like an award that you could give that could mean a lot to one other person and nothing to almost everybody else.
Yeah.
But for that one person getting that recognition from you as being their like the best friend of the year as an example is like an interesting expansion. Like, are there ways in which we as like a company could or should be using things like that to, like better recognize the things that people are doing and acknowledge and sort of use that as an opportunity, right? Like, we're not submitting to other awards. I don't think we really care about awards, but like if I got something from someone in my community that would be much more meaningful to me than some of these other things that, maybe I could be in the situation for.
Yeah, right. That award distinguishes you in a much smaller sphere, but it could therefore be way easier to be a meaningful distinction because you don't have to be. It is because it's specific, right? It's both specific to this sphere and therefore more meaningful. I think also maybe an interesting way into without it feel like, because part of my fear would be this more specific and the more niche of your sphere, the higher the corn potential. Like, could be real corny to formalize all of these awards in a smaller set. But I then had the thought, well, sometimes that is a thing, and it's only made possible by sort of indirectly awarding distinction. And the example that first came to mind is the idea of bridesmaids. Because when you ask certain people to be your bridesmaids, you are implicitly and indirectly saying, you are one of the most important people in my life right now. And it therefore is like, it's an honor. It's not just a job or like, it's not like, hey, you're winning my best friend award this year. It is more of an honor and a signal than it is like a direct labeling. And I'm wondering, to your question of how to apply it more, even at work, like, is there a less corny and more symbolic way of awarding and honoring people?
Yeah. I mean, I think like titles and compensation are like the most tangible thing that people would turn to at work to say like these are moments of recognition, but like they don't come particularly frequently. The sort of like invariably the luster of those things fades relatively quickly once it's passed. Like it might be exciting for a week or a month or whatever, but then that thing sort of like wears off. And so like, are there things that are more significant? And it probably matters on like, what are the things you value? But I think bridesmaids is the like, whatever the people of honor on either side of those things are really interesting. Like godparents, we have godless parents for Emerson because we're like, it's nice. We were not going to do anything because we're not religious, but I was like, it's nice for her to like have that relationship and to like give someone sort of like some sort of permission structure to be more participatory in her life or whatever. Like that's another example, but I'm like, now it has me like really sort of interested in how do you do these things and sort of like bestow like a moment of recognition in a way that doesn't have to be super public, right? It's not like published somewhere or whatever it is, but like that the person gets to like see that they were seen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It helps in those settings too, though, that those are permanent and theoretically like one and done type recognitions versus something that requires more upkeep because it may not consistently stay true that you are the great for blank or best of blank, because that may cease to be the case in time in other contexts. So it's tricky because how do you create awards that are something that don't fade because you can keep holding on to it because it's not going to get revoked from you.
Yeah, the variability of awards, I think, potentially allows for the like removal of the feeling of loss. I think if you looked at like any particular award by the sort of net of the experience it creates for people, it's probably net negative, right? Like if 8 films are up for an Oscar for Best Picture,
but
like
only one wins,
7 groups of people are feeling real shitty or like they lost something, and one group of people feels like they won something and great, but like that comparative aspect of it feels negative. But if the awards themselves are like highly variable and you don't even know what the award is, then you don't feel like it's a loss if it's given out because you didn't even know what you would be like contending for, right? Like if it's like Jess's like best joke of the year, right? Like you're just
talking like, about superlatives at this point. Timestamp superlatives.
Yeah.
That change.
Timestamp superlatives that you can change annually, but Jess is giving out 5 awards at the end of the year.
At the end of the year.
And those awards, you have no idea what they're going to be, but like they're basically like the Dundies in The Office.
Yeah, so did we land on all awards should be like
we should start
Dundies?
The Dundies.
Got it. Okay. I think that's the takeaway. That would be surprising. To wrap this, what are some example of Dundie awards? Dundie awards.
They're all like inappropriate, like hottest redhead at the office or something was like one of them in the Dundies.
Whitest
or
sneakers award. Oh my goodness. Yeah, actually best dad award and best mom award were both examples of Dundies. This, I don't think following in this path is not necessarily a good idea at all.
Yeah, we can't use the actual Dundee. We should have
extreme repulsiveness award. Wonder who on The Office won that one.
Yeah, probably me. I'll just say that. Like that's like a safe bet, just to say that I'm the extreme.
Oh, in our office, you're saying you won the extreme repulsiveness award? Brutal.
Well, it's just better to say that it's me, and then if someone beat me, like great, but I don't want to. I don't want to cast that on anyone.
You don't want to award someone else with
guy. Yeah. All right, Jess. Do we have any wrap-up corner that you can do? Jess's awards corner, which will be coming in December, where Jess awards some awards that we have no idea what they're going to be.
Got it. To you and Aaron, or I give you awards for things.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
I
sounds
love
great.
having that kind of authority.
Yeah.
I promise I won't misuse extreme repulsiveness as a superlative.
There we go. All right, so your wrap-up corner has 3 requirements of awards, and then you're giving some. What are the 3 again?
Well, the original outline are: it must recognize and distinguish fairly earned excellence in the name of some craft, profession, or pursuit. And most importantly, and maybe even more succinctly, awards that are good are meaningful, yet specific in their distinction. And I think that although the Dundies from the television series The Office are not a great example, there definitely is some opportunity to use more of these indirect and maybe in a smaller sphere, more meaningful types of recognition to help people see that we see them.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that is. Yeah. So I'll just have to come up with something.
Yeah. You win so many awards in my head and my heart, Jess. So
gosh, that is truly something I need. I need to win many awards. I would like to be distinguished.
So the additional metric in our personal award circle is like some people need more.
Yeah.
One.
I mean, you can't give it to them just because they need it or want it. But if they deserve it, you should not be shy about lavishing with awards. That's all I'm saying.
Duly noted.
Got it. Got
all right.
it.
Well,
good to know.
And the award goes to Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by the Classic Tenors. It's just a type of singing group.
That's what I am. It's just a classic tenor.
It's like Joey, an award of the best classic tenors. All right.
As always, we'd like to thank our executive producer and mezzo alto, Jess Vander.
Thanks, Joey. We'd also like to thank sound engineer and the best of our sound engineers, Alex Contel.
We'd like to thank our programming coordinator and baritone, Les Jacobs. Les isn't a baritone.
No, definitely. I don't think that's correct. And we have to thank our production help, Sarah Gilbert and Nora Mestridge. You are the fairest earned excellence of them all. Boy, I'm having a rough day.
Sarah doesn't want your awards.
No, she
And as always, thanks, Ellen.
Thanks, Ellen.
Special thanks. Special awards.
What's the most meaningful award you have won? Not a special thanks, but I'll special thank whatever the answer is.
I don't think I have won many awards that I can think of.
Or a recognition.
Yeah.
No? Wow. All right. Well, then.
I mean, I guess like in school, like graduating, like magna cum laude is not really a award. It's like.
Sounds like it is. Sounds like a recognition.
It's like a threshold thing, right?
That's
like you just have to cross some line. It's a distinction.
Therefore, is it an award?
I don't know.
Perhaps.
I didn't put a lot of weight into it.
I'd like to thank...
What's your greatest award?
Oh, for sure. It is my sophomore year of high school, third place bridge medal for the Science Olympiad national competition. It is because I worked really hard for it and I was really proud, but I definitely thought I was getting second until somebody eked me out at the last minute. But look, we all have the things we hold on to. I would like to thank again Sarah Gilbert for uniquely teaching me that not everything has to be a competition. That is actually a very critical life lesson.
Well, thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.
All right. Love you. Bye.
Bye. I'm such a nerd. I should stop. I should just stop.